The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. Sam, Gambo may be on vacation, but the slop does not stop. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Even Gambo has some stuff to address today. We couldn't let him be on vacation. He had to take to his Twitter feed.
Yeah.
This is fun. It is the 29th, Thursday night. Free agency starts less than 24 hours from now. Originally, so the idea here, and we told you guys, for anyone who listened to our Joe House podcast a few days back, we said that we were going to put out a second main feed episode this week. This was supposed to be a simple, by the books, here are some free agents, like let's explain what's going on in free agency. Right. Here are some veteran minimum players that each of us like, throw out 5 names each, that sort of thing. It was going to be like a kind of a cookie cutter podcast. We are still going to talk about those guys on the back half of this podcast, I think.
Right.
But chaos.
We're not gonna lead with Keita Bates-Diop when we can talk about Kyrie Irving, James Harden, or Karl Anthony Towns.
Put beautifully.
We have to talk about those guys.
Put beautifully. So much slop was released in just the past 6 hours. I took a nap and I missed like 2/3 of it. Where do you want to start?
I'll start here. We are obviously taking a huge risk releasing a podcast the day before the last day of the previous CBA. Because as of July 1st, the new CBA will go into effect. And that means that there will be significant amount of movement trade-wise likely tonight, which is Thursday night as we're recording this, and tomorrow, which is Friday, which means the Suns could have a different roster by the end of tomorrow. I hope you're prepared for that, by the way, just in case we need to record again tomorrow.
Well,
but
I'll be ready. I'm here.
And then we have free agency. We could have done a podcast every day this week, I think. We probably could have done it, and we might still have to do it every day for the rest of the week. But yeah, I think some of the things that happened today were directly related to the Suns in that reporters were connecting them with the Suns. There's also this weird element of there is this weird random Twitter account that a few days ago said James Harden will opt into his contract, which everyone said he wouldn't, and then request to be traded, which gives James Harden significant options that he did not have before. And then that did happen, and that same guy also listed the Phoenix Suns, and he also said that Karl Anthony Towns could be traded to the Suns. So we have that thrown in the mix. And then we also have a report by Chris Haynes. This is all today.
Wait, sorry. That guy's name is
Dime Dropper 20,
dropping dimes 20 or something like that is now a now defunct Twitter account that's already been suspended.
Suspended, which is odd.
What a run.
The way. Yeah, what a run. Nailing it with the James Harden news, because that James Harden news it's exactly what everybody thought would not happen. And then it happened. And then we had a report by Chris Haynes that Kyrie Irving, a nonsensical report, can I say, by Chris Haynes that Kyrie Irving will meet with the Phoenix Suns in free agency. So essentially today we have a credible connection of Kyrie Irving to the Phoenix Suns, a semi-credible connection of James Harden to the Suns, because it's not just that one random Twitter guy, and then this sort of conspiracy theory level connection of Karl Anthony Towns to the Suns. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with Kyrie, because it's coming from Chris Haynes.
Okay.
Chris Haynes with his...
Who's always right about this.
with his questionable track record. And here's the part where I'm a little disappointed, because just like 2 hours ago before, of course we knew we wanted to talk about this when we recorded, and like 2 hours ago, this is where Gambo came out and said, this is insane. This is not happening. He is on vacation, and yet he still wanted to address this. Do you think it's insane? Do you think it's
yes?
Do you think it's completely insane? Why is it insane?
Well, I think the most likely scenario is that Kyrie Irving is trying to put pressure on the Mavs to give him a longer-term deal.
Yes.
And I think the Mavs probably want to give him a relatively short deal with some non-guaranteed money or some like kickers that kick into place if they make, the third round or something like that. Those kinds of things where not all the money is guaranteed. And I think Kyrie has a pretty good way of forcing them to give him money considering what they gave up for him, and they don't have a lot of options in trades or free agency. So I think it's more than anything, I think it's Kyrie Irving putting some pressure on the Dallas Mavericks. I also think that it doesn't make a ton of sense for the Suns to use their last remaining trade chip on a guard, being that, the majority of their salary on their team is going to two guards already. So from that perspective, it doesn't make sense. But the final version of that is, if this were to happen, there are three ways it could happen, right? The first one is he signs for a minimum deal. Not going to happen.
Yeah, baby.
Sorry.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure about that?
I'm pretty sure that's
Are
not
you
gonna
sure about
happen.
that? Because here's the thing, man.
Yeah.
So everyone knows the only way the Suns can sign Kyrie outright, option one that you're talking about, is a minimum contract. It would be unprecedented. It has never happened. But this is Kyrie Irving we're talking about.
No,
Are you
Sam, no.
absolutely sure?
It's not going to happen.
You are trying to reason with he who cannot be reasoned with. That is all.
That
that is all I'm suggesting.
Okay, that's fair.
Sometimes you cannot reason with crazy, and I wouldn't count it out. I would say it has a 99.999% chance of not happening.
Okay, there you go.
But man,
I'll take that.
We
I
potentially
accept those odds.
We potentially could be witness to the funniest thing to ever happen if it were to happen.
People would absolutely hate the Suns, and that's funny.
That's
imagine if
one.
he signed. Imagine if he signed for a minimum and they traded Ayton for Karl Anthony Towns. Okay,
we are actually Lakers fans now. We sound like Lakers fans.
Okay, I'm not saying any of this will happen. I'm not even for the idea of Kyrie on the Suns, for the record.
For a minimum?
That's
if
a
he
different
signed
story.
for a minimum, okay. If he signed for a minimum, yes, you would.
But I think there's a chance that he's a bigger detriment than he is. The problem with 3 stars on teams often comes down to massive distractions, and you can't add a massive distraction to a team that already could be susceptible.
Okay,
to
but
that.
what about a team with 4 stars? Has anyone tried that yet?
That's a good point. It's a good point. Does Ray Allen count on those old Heat teams?
No, Ray
Okay.
Allen doesn't count.
I mean, he was about Kevin Durant's age. Anyway, let's get back to it. Second way the Suns could do it: trade DeAndre and completely into a team with cap space, take no money back, sign him for some sort of MLE contract. Right, so you get rid of Ayton, that clears some version of an MLE, and then you sign Kyrie Irving to an MLE. I don't know if you've thought of that option yet, Sam, but that's one of them.
Here are the teams that could take DeAndre Ayton's contract outright. Based on the number of cap space that they have now. A couple of teams have already used some of their cap space recently. The Utah Jazz in the John Collins trade. The Sacramento Kings just re-signed Harrison Barnes to a 3-year
what a
extension
crazy thing, by the way.
A couple hours ago.
To clear all that cap space and then use a bunch of it on Harrison Barnes is crazy.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. They still have $18 million left, but whatever. But there are only 3 teams that could take DeAndre Ayton's contract like totally outright into their cap space. The Houston Rockets, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Indiana Pacers. And the Indiana Pacers couldn't even do it until July, what's the date? July 15th?
Yeah.
So probably not going to happen.
Which they could still do. They could still do, right? If they agree upon it on that date and then, they just wait to sign him until after that.
Yeah, 2 weeks is a long time to wait on that. The point is, that is a good idea. I'm glad you thought of that, but not many candidates there in terms of who the Suns could pawn Ayton off.
It's a dumb idea. And then the last one, which is incredibly complicated, would be a sign and trade to the Mavs where Kyrie Irving takes, at most, approximately $20 million and comes back to the Suns. Now, the Mavs would have to find a third team because they would have to send out enough to make up for salary matching for DeAndre Ayton's contract. And that third team would have to take that extra money because the Suns would have to not take it, because if the Suns execute a sign and trade, they are hard capped at the first apron, which is like $160-something million. Yeah,
it's like $10 million less than the second apron.
And they would have to sign essentially minimum contracts and rookies for the rest of their roster after they execute that sign and trade. Whereas if they were to trade DeAndre Ayton for anything else, they are no longer hard capped anywhere and can just continue to explode this payroll to the largest payroll of all time, which is supposedly what they want to do. So there's a reason why it's almost impossible. There's a reason why Gambo could feel pretty confident saying it won't happen. And even if he does meet with the Suns, there's something else is going on, because it's not because he's coming to the Suns this year, is what I'll say. It's just a weird thing.
It's a very weird thing. And
you seem to want it. You were having a day on Twitter today.
I was having a fun day. I mean, I got off some posts. I don't know.
I got off some posts.
I don't know that I would want this for say we take option 3 and somehow there was a sign and trade involved, that giving Kyrie $20 million a year where he can be a massive distraction and filling out the rest of the roster with essentially
and what if it's
guys.
1 year? Yeah, what if it's like a 1 year deal too, right? Because why would he sign long term at $20 million?
Right,
he wouldn't.
No, that's a great point. He probably wouldn't. So I would not be comfortable with that. I was just having fun with the idea of Kyrie signing with my team for a veteran minimum. I think it would be absolutely hilarious.
It would be so fun.
And it would
that
be the
part
most,
is true.
It would be the most unguardable offense ever. So, we would have fun with it. But
can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Would the Suns be more unguardable if you were to trade DeAndre in for Kyrie or for Karl Anthony Towns?
That's a great question. I would probably guess. I'm really not that big of a fan of Cat. I've soured on.
And I still would do it.
I've soured on him a lot in the past couple years, and yet if we're just talking about offense, the spacing that Cat would provide,
it's crazy.
Is kind of crazy to think about what he could do for those other guys if you had him theoretically.
Let me say this about. I don't know. Do you have more on Kyrie?
No, I think we can move on. It's probably not happening, guys, but man, it would be hilarious. And even if they just meet with him, even if they just actually have a meeting, that's already hilarious. Hats off to him. Great content all around.
No thanks on the Kyrie Irving distractions and that come with him, and and the maybe non-reliability that comes with him as well. We already have enough players that are potentially injury prone. I guess where do we gonna go next? I brought up Cat. Let's talk about Cat real quick. So the only thing connecting the Suns to Karl Anthony Towns
alert
is the guy who some random guy
put on your tinfoil hats for this.
Yeah, who reported about James Harden and him opting in order to be traded before anyone else did. And so that's why I looked at it and said, okay, well, we got to talk about it now just because it's fun. I asked around, and I think there could be some truth to it that they've talked. Not to say that a trade will actually come out of it, but just that they've talked. And Karl Anthony Towns has a massive contract that's not very exciting for a lot of teams to think about. So I think you could say that that's the reason why the Suns could potentially be in there. But the idea on the other side of that, of the Timberwolves pairing DeAndre Ayton and Rudy Gobert, hilarious. Unless they trade Gobert too, which is a possibility. Right now they're teaming up DeAndre Ayton with Anthony Edwards, and I kind of don't hate that. I think you could find something kind of interesting with those two guys. I think he's a better fit with Anthony Edwards than Gobert is. If you're trading Gobert too, but I don't know, maybe not.
I don't see any real advantage for one over the other, to be honest. I mean, my first thought here,
offensively, there's a huge advantage to Ayton over Gobert.
I mean, I would just get off the Gobert contract and shift Cat back over to center, to be honest. Cat's a much better offensive center. My first thought here was what's in it for Minnesota. Technically, Cat makes $36 million next year. They can match that salary with Ayton plus Campaign, who, by the way, we'll get to Campaign. He appears to be maybe returning. But there's no real value there for the Timberwolves.
It's just fun to talk about.
It is fun to talk about.
It's more imaginary than anything else.
It is fun to talk about. This would have to be some sort of 3-team construction, and I don't even know.
Yeah, and if they could do that, maybe they could get somebody else back that makes more sense with Gobert for DeAndre Ayton.
Karl Anthony Towns will make $61 million in the final year of his current contract. What
do we care about?
Okay, you're just waving it off. You're just waving it off, are you? All right.
That's just Matt Ishbia. What is he going to do? We're already going to be in the second apron at that point.
Okay,
so
I do have a question though. Is there how many NBA players who have made an All-Star team are bigger playoff sinkers than Karl Anthony Towns has been in his career so far? And maybe
the other guy we're about to talk about,
he might be one of them. I could think of one. And that's formerly my guy. I don't know if he's my guy anymore. Julius Randle has a lot to
that's a
prove
good one.
on the playoff
That's
stage.
a good one. Yeah.
But I'm not sure I can think of anyone else.
But
Cat
Karl
is up
Anthony
there.
Towns is miscast offensively as the most important offensive player on his team.
But he wasn't
he goes
even
to a
last
team
year.
and becomes the fourth most important offensive player.
He was already their second option last year.
He's a finisher only, right? Give him the ball when he's rolling to the rim. Give him the ball when he's wide open at the three-point line. That's it. Don't let him post up. Don't let him do anything else.
Okay, but
and that's what the Suns could do.
why-
Can he play defense? No, not really.
But that begs the question: why do I want to pay $50 million for that when what you're describing is basically Mike Muscala?
Why would you want to pay $50 million? Why would you want to pay $50 million for Bradley Beal as your third option?
Because
the whole
Bradley
thing,
Beal can weave between. He can do both.
He can do both, correct. But how many guys can shoot threes at the rate that he can at his size?
You talking about Cat?
Yeah, Jokic, is that it?
I don't know, man. Sign.
I think it might be.
I would. A couple of these guys I have on my free agent list once we get to it.
No, how dare you?
Give him a shot.
It's not the same.
Give Mike Muscala. That's your boy, man. Dario Saric, bring him back.
Of course, I have him on my list.
Let him jack threes.
Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Karl Anthony Towns is the most unguardable team I can imagine.
For
That's
offense,
just insane
yes.
to think about. Yes. Yeah. And they're huge, right? If you put a gigantic power forward in there at some point, someone that's also close to 7 feet tall with Durant and Cat, you can get away with some things defensively, I think, that it wouldn't be perfect. Of course, it wouldn't. But how funny would it be and how fun would it be? I would love it. I'm just going to throw it out there that I would love it. And it would be a fascinating thing to just go, well, hopefully, if you think Vogel could fix Ayton, let's see if he could fix Cat's defense too. You're putting a lot of faith in him already. Let's just put it in a different guy who actually has a track record of playing really well offensively.
Any of these possibilities are equally hilarious because they would all be unprecedented.
Yeah. And everyone would hate the Suns.
And everyone would hate the Suns. That's fine. Yeah. Everyone's going to hate, you know.
I don't give a shit. Yeah. That
matter.
Part I don't. People hate great teams. Like, that's often what happens. Usually we're on the other side of that. You know, as the team that's not winning a championship, hating the great teams. Would you do it? Let me just ask you that to wrap up the Cat thing.
For what? Ayton and
for
Payne?
Ayton. Just figure out a way to... No, you can do it for Ayton.
Is it... Well, I thought...
Because he makes $33 million before July 1st.
Oh, you can do it. You're saying you can do it if you do it tomorrow. Yeah, but if you do it on July 1st, you need Payne, right? Because
you might, yeah. You might. I haven't looked into that, to be honest.
Not that that's a deal breaker for me. Yes, I would do
it.
Right.
Right.
Like, what are you asking? You know,
well, you yes, I got to get you on the record.
Yes,
you talked bad about it.
Yes, I would do it.
Okay, now last thing. James Harden, who could have been a free agent, opted into his contract with the Philadelphia 76ers under the impression that he will be traded, which likely means James Harden will be traded tonight or tomorrow, based on everything that we understand about this team. So, could he be an option for the Suns if they could work out a 3-team deal with DeAndre Ayton going somewhere else? Maybe. He has probably quite a bit of control over where he goes, being that he didn't have to opt in, right? He kind of did it as a favor to the 76ers, and that means they probably are going to work with him and where he goes. The two teams that it was reported that he could be wanting to go to supposedly are the Clippers and the Suns, supposedly. And yeah, I mean, I find that to be interesting, right? At the very least, that's interesting. And it kind of works because he was kind of underpaid in this last year. So the DeAndre Ayton contract and the James Harden contract are pretty similar money in this trade. But obviously the 76ers have nothing. They want nothing to do with DeAndre Ayton. So you'd have to find a third team. But if you could, how do you feel about that?
Is it an upgrade over DeAndre Ayton? Sure. This is not ideal from a fit perspective. I just kind of feel like Harden dominates the ball so much, even at this point in his career, in a way that you're taking reps out of guys' hands who I think would be better on this team. Like if James Harden is going to be on the Suns, he's the fourth best player. Well, I guess he's better than Beal, but he's the third best player.
He's the best passer.
Yeah, well, exactly. He's going to be the point guard, but I don't know that I like him so much in that role with this much scoring around him. You just don't need to shoot for the stars. Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is fun to talk about. Kyrie Irving, Karl Anthony, all this, but a lot of these options of just like signing a bunch of role players we don't need the unprecedented super team. We can build a very strong team that has a very good chance at competing for a championship
But there
with
is-
just Watanabe or whatever.
There is a cap element to taking on money like this in a way that the Suns are willing to do that other teams may not be willing to do because of the fear of the second apron. We're trading DeAndre Ayton for a singular massive contract that other teams are afraid of, like, for example, Karl Anthony Towns, or if you find a way to sign Kyrie Irving long term. That kind of makes sense math-wise. Of course you'll be limited by all the other things that the second apron does. But if you're way over the second apron, and you're way over the second apron because you have 2 stars, that sucks. But if you're way over the second apron because you have 4, that's not as bad.
Look, man,
the limitations that come with that are just not as bad.
You're talking about a difference in luxury tax payments of like not even tens of millions, maybe over $100 million.
Right,
if HBO wants to eat that, sure. Again, I've always said it's not my money. But my expectation when we moved on from Sarver was that we would get an owner who like dips his toe into the luxury tax. My expectation was never that, let's be the team that pays $300 million in luxury tax penalties. If HBO wants to be that guy, great. I'm not holding my breath on that level of financial commitment from him. Again, everything we're talking about so far in this episode is unprecedented. But if you want to argue that it makes sense, like, sure. If you have an owner who's willing to do that, sure.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. And look, they're not talking about dipping a toe over the second apron. What did they say when the reports came out? They want to explode through it. They want to pierce the second apron, right? They want to explode through it. So this is what it is. If they really believe in that strategy, that's what it would take. And yes, it would cost. There's a good chance that the luxury tax payment this year for Matt Ishbia will be more than 5 times as much as what Robert Sarver paid in the entire time that he owned the Suns. That is not an exaggeration. We can look up the numbers after this, but there's a good chance that that's what it's going to be this year. So that's what it takes. The Suns did actually
Those ticket
trade for a
prices are
player.
about to be crazy. Get ready, folks.
$30 nachos.
$1,000 for nosebleeds. Sorry, we got Karl Anthony Towns on the books for $60 million. What do you want?
You can watch him for free at home.
Yeah, it's true.
The Suns did actually trade for a player this offseason, and his name is Bradley Beal, and they introduced him at the Suns facilities today, where he asked, how long will it be 115 degrees outside? Which I relate to. It was just sort of a run-of-the-mill standard introduction. What'd you think? It's hard to really tell anything at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've seen interviews with Bradley Beal before, so I kind of wasn't surprised by anything about his demeanor. He's a chill dude who
he looked a little bit nervous. I think.
I don't know. I mean, he's very professional. I think he handled it well. I think he made his own opening statement kind of before James gives his opening statement first, and then Frank Vogel was there, so he does it too, and then Brad followed before anyone even gave any questions, and yeah, I thought he looked pretty polished. Also, it made me laugh just a little bit that James Jones and Frank Vogel are up there in like the tracksuit style Suns gear, and then Bradley Beal's kind of old fashioned in a full ass suit,
a Washington D.C. style suit.
He looked good. He looked sharp, but it's funny because you're not really used to players doing that anymore.
They don't have to anymore.
They've relaxed.
It was a respect thing.
It's so casual. Even compared to, it's kind of amazing how dress codes have changed even since Brad has been in the league. Like he came in the league in 2012. Back then, every coach wore a suit every game, and now it's like none of them do. So I thought that was a little funny. But yeah, in terms of his answers, good stuff. Nothing crazy. I hope he enjoys his camping trip with Book in Flagstaff.
Yeah.
Do you have any other?
He said that.
Do you have any other pointers for him on discovering Arizona?
No, I think he'll have a lot more fun when it starts to cool down. He did mention the housing market. It's just very relatable to me. It sucks.
Well,
right
that was funny to me because I was like, dude, you're struggling in the housing market, but
yeah. But I think I'm pretty excited. He seems like a cool guy. I think there is Frank Vogel was there too. James Jones was there. James Jones being his tight-lipped self, and Frank Vogel talking about campaign DeAndre, and it's like I did find that to be kind of interesting because it's like he has to. They're on the team right now. He's talking about it, but
he has to kind of bring up Ayton because Ayton is kind of attached to the other three.
And people are going to ask about him.
What I thought was interesting that Vogel said he mentioned early on in the presser Campaign's name twice. He didn't have to bring up Campaign. We didn't even know going into the presser if Campaign's option was going to be guaranteed or not, if he was going to be on the roster.
And James Jones was not going to tell us during that press conference.
James Jones we got a really funny soundbite, really funny interaction between him and Dwayne. Dwayne Rankin of the Arizona Republic, that is. But I thought it was interesting that Vogel brought up Payne's name twice as like, yeah, that's a guy who's going to get a look. And I also thought that prompted what was a really good follow-up question from Dave King of Bright Side of the Sun, about you've brought up Campaign's name twice. Okay, are you basically telling us that you're not into the Booker Beal backcourt thing and that you want a traditional point guard? I'm glad someone asked that because Vogel pushed back on that idea and said basically he's comfortable with Book and Beal possibly as the backcourt. They're going to try out different things. They could have a different traditional starting point guard, or the fifth guy could be some sort of 3-and-D wing that they acquire. Who knows? Maybe
it's going to be whoever plays the best defense, right?
I would
whoever plays the best defense.
I would think so. I would prefer that it is a point of attack defender type, either that you get in free agency or,
and that could be a point guard, right?
Or
if they have
if
that,
Torrey Craig.
Yeah, if they have like a Derek White type, I don't know if there's one out there. I didn't really find one, to be honest. But if they have that, then yeah, that makes sense as a point guard, even though he might not be dribbling as much as a normal point guard. But yeah, I thought he handled that well.
Yeah, I don't think it should be Campaign, for the record.
He's been guaranteed now, by the way. Campaign's contract was guaranteed full $6 million, which they had to do by today.
I'm glad to have him back. For the record,
me too. You could trade him now too. It's not necessarily that he's guaranteed to stay.
I'm glad to have him back because I think he could have some value sincerely on the roster next year. I just starting point guard I do not see as his role. We'll see how Frank feels about that. I think Cam plays pretty sturdy defense, but on the other hand, I think there's a pretty huge advantage potentially to really committing to point Book and, like you said, just having a massive starting five. Even if
so cool.
Even if you don't trade for Karl Anthony Towns, you have
it's
Ayton
so different.
as the five.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Campaign could start. I don't think so. Ish Wainwright was also fully guaranteed earlier than Cam. Interestingly, I thought maybe a trade was coming down when I saw that because it was just weird timing. But congratulations to Ish, by the way, because I think that's really cool. A player who struggled mightily towards the end there, but improved a lot throughout the season and could continue to improve. But either way, he's going to make that money this year, and I think that's pretty cool for him, considering he was a guy who was struggling to stay in the NBA at all.
Also,
and now will make a few $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, people don't think about this, but like Ish for the past 2 years has been on a two-way contract. The two-way contracts in the NBA is like $400,000, $500,000. Don't get me wrong; it's not bad money compared to your average Joe. But when you jump up after 2 years of that to then getting the official minimum contract in the NBA, like now he's going to be making basically $2 million. It's a significant quality of life increase for a guy like Ish Wainwright, who until now has probably felt very poor compared to his teammates in the locker room. Yeah,
it's pretty cool for him. Anything else on those guys? Or the presser?
I don't think so. We should move on to free agency and
let's take a quick break. I want to just give a shout out once again, as we do this time of year, to the awesome reporters who ask the great questions at press conferences like this. We always appreciate those guys because we're not out there doing it ourselves. So,
and if we
appreciate when they ask great questions.
If we were, we would ask really stupid stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I would try really hard if I had to, but we don't. Isn't that great?
We don't have to try.
All right, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll break down all of the free agent options the Suns have, which are essentially limitless.
When we come back, we'll be reading every 676 pages of the new CBA. So join us after the break.
All right, free agency begins Saturday. There is a moratorium. Is that what they call it? Yeah, that's what they call it, right?
Yeah.
Period before they can be signed, but they can start announcing deals as early as midday Saturday, and it's going to be fun. to see all this stuff break. Lots of stuff is going to happen in the next few days. This is one of the craziest off seasons, I think, already, and it's barely begun. And a lot of stuff is going to happen in the next few days. The Suns, we're going to do this under the assumption, look, we covered Kyrie. That's one guy they could sign. That's not a minimum contract. Okay, so we did that. But everything else we're covering here is under the assumption of minimum contracts, right?
This half of the episode, we're coming back to reality. This is the stuff that we were planning on talking about all week long. So if you're a realist, maybe fast forward just to get here.
Do you want to cover the guys who could potentially be coming back real quick?
Yes. Well, even before we get there, so I think let's set the table with what the Suns have right now. The assumption that I have, and it's not official yet, so currently the Suns have 8 players under contract. I suspect that very soon that will be 9 players under contract. We have not gotten official word about Toumani Camara's contract, but am I right about that? I haven't seen any.
No, we haven't
about that. So, but I just assume
he could be he could be on a 2-way.
Yeah, I would be
Toumani, just for the record.
I would be a little surprised though. I think they're going to give him a full roster.
It just depends on their options in free agency here, because you can only roster 15 guys.
So for now, I'm going to slot him in though, if that's all right. And say we have 9 players, not officially under contract, but that's kind of what it feels like. Those 9 players being, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so excuse me if I can't remember anyone real fast. It's KD, Booker, Beal, Ayton, Payne, we just talked about, Ish, we just talked about, the 2 throw-ins from the trade, which are Jordan Goodwin and Isaiah Todd, and Toumani Camara.
And Isaiah Todd could be easily cut.
He could be easily cut. Could he be actually... he might have too much NBA experience. Well, no, he only played 1 year. He could be converted to a 2-way as well.
He could.
They could do something like that,
which I think would be smart.
So yeah, but for now,
you can have 3 2-way players, by the way, in the new CBA.
It used to be 2 2-way players. Now each team has 3 slots, but only if you use all 15 of your roster spots. That's an interesting wrinkle that I learned recently from Keith Smith. You have to use all of your roster spots in order to unlock the extra Easter egg, if you will, the 3rd 2-way slot.
And you have to use at least 13 roster spots during the season, but you can only have 13 for a short period of time. You're supposed to have at least 14, but you can keep the 15th spot open without roster charges. The CBA, there is a version of this podcast that we're doing right now, Sam, where we just dive into the changes of the new CBA, and we probably should do something like that. At some point, but I think that for a lot of people, they might not find that interesting.
Honestly, I listened to a podcast, the Spotrac official podcast with Keith Smith the other day, talking about all the changes in the CBA. I can't recommend it highly enough for people who want to learn more about the details of this stuff, because he explains it way, way, way better than I or we ever could.
He's the best.
And a lot of this stuff, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I plan on making mistakes. I plan on making mistakes on air, like through the podcast, and being corrected.
It's impossible to know it all,
and just learning through that, because I'm just, I'm going to be dumb sometimes, and that's just how it is. It's 676 pages, folks. They released it 2 days before free agency. Like, of course,
and it's written by lawyers, and you can tell.
Of course, we don't know what's in there and what the hell is going on, right?
Yeah, so we'll do our best.
We'll figure it out.
Maybe at some point, if David is up for it, he can come on and cover it from the Suns' perspective.
Yeah,
the most interesting part of the Suns.
He absolutely could, and he's the best one in the Sun sphere at doing all this. I don't know if even he has any interest in reading all 676 pages of that document, though, or if he has the time.
Okay, so potentially 9 players. That means 6 spots open, but probably more spots in free agency they'll have open, most likely.
Sure.
Because, Toumani could be a 2-way, and Isaiah Todd will probably not be a full roster spot.
Yep.
So probably 10, I don't know. We'll see.
We're anticipating Jordan Goodwin's a full roster spot, though. By the way, Brad,
I do think that
didn't mention Beal in his presser seemed very high on Jordan.
And Joe House was too, man. These guys are really selling me on Jordan Goodwin.
Yep.
Shout out House. That was a fun episode. So
what do we do?
Let me just say this real quick. There's only three players I know for sure are going to be on the Suns, and they are Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant. There's a lot of changes that could happen before these free agency contracts are signed. Still, so we can keep that in mind. If I had to rank the next most likely player to be on the Suns, it might be Jordan Goodwin because they clearly wanted him on the Suns and they made sure to trade for him. And then we get to like people like DeAndre and campaign and stuff like that.
Sure.
So just keep that in mind that we could even potentially talk about centers, even though there's a likelihood of bringing back guys like Biz and Landale and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, speaking of guys coming back, if you had to rank the most likely players to come back, who would you say?
Out of the guys who are all free agents, who their contracts expired. Okay, so
Craig.
Wait, real quick. How many of them are there? There are 7 of them.
Yeah.
So, Torrey Craig, Jock Landale.
I think those are 1 and 2 for me.
Okay, so all of the guys there, 3 guys have bird rights, and dude, we can't do this whole explanation on this podcast, so we're just gonna have to burn through some of it. 3 of these guys have. The Suns have their bird rights. That's Jock Landale, Torrey Craig, and Bismack Biyombo. 4 of them we do not have bird rights. That would be Terrence Ross, T.J. Warren, Damian Lee, and who am I missing? Josh Okogie. And bird rights, for anyone who's wondering, is just it depends on basically, to simplify it, years of service or the type of contract, the number of years of service on a contract at the time when a player was traded. In some cases, so that's why, for instance. A player like Josh Okogie, who the Suns signed for 1 year, you don't get a player's bird rights if you sign them to a 1-year contract. But a player like Jock Landale, on the other hand, who the Suns have also had for only 1 year, because he was on a 2-year contract that initially started with the San Antonio Spurs, when he was traded from the Spurs to the Suns, because that was not his decision, his bird rights that the Spurs had transferred to the Suns. So I know it's all very complicated, and sorry for
and bird rights
burning through this stuff, but...
Bird rights essentially allow you to pay guys more.
Yes.
To keep them, in order to keep them on your team.
So because of that, any player for whom the Suns have bird rights, they can pay. Some of these guys are early bird rights. It means that you can pay them, 175% of their previous contract, or up to what is basically the average player salary. So in the case of guys like Torrey Craig, Jock Landale, the Suns are eligible to re-sign them for up to what is an average NBA salary, which is roughly around $11-12 million per season. That doesn't mean that's what they're going to be offered, but it certainly means that there is a possibility that the Suns go all the way up there, and there is a strategy involved in signing those guys to that amount. For any of the guys who don't have bird rights, real quick, what that means is that, so again, this is Ross, this is Warren, this is Okogie, this is Damian Lee. The Suns can basically only sign them to what is virtually what is a minimum contract. It's 120% of your previous contract, and all of those guys were already on minimums. So it's a slight raise for any of them. If any of those guys gets an offer from another team for, say, $3 or $4 or $5 million, the Suns wouldn't be able to match, and you would have to assume, probably in most scenarios, that we would lose that player. Some of those guys I don't think are going to get those offers from another team. You know, I struggle to think of a team that's going to offer Terrence Ross $5 million, for example. But that makes basically all of the guys for whom the Suns don't have bird rights, in my opinion, it is less likely that we retain them. Unless there really is
somebody
not
like Damian Lee is probably a minimum. Damian Lee's probably a minimum player. The Suns could retain him at a minimum. I think that's a good chance.
Sure.
But like
Okogie
Craig
is a tough one.
Okogie, yeah, maybe not. But Craig and Landale, being that the Suns can overpay them a little, I think they probably will keep them. By the way, blame the CBA for making some of this coverage boring, because this is relevant. It's just a little bit boring. But the Suns cannot aggregate players for a trade in the future because of the CBA second apron BS that we have to deal with. But that means that they have to sign these guys for tradable players where their salary is within about 110% of another player's salary that they could trade them for.
Right.
And that means that they're going to try to sign them to a contract that is incredibly similar to, say, for example, the taxpayer MLE,
sure,
or the standard MLE if they get real spicy. But most likely, like Torrey Craig can be signed for 2 years, $10 million, for example.
Yep.
And then it may be 2 years, $5 million first year, $5.25 million the second year, because that's exactly the taxpayer MLE.
Right.
Now, we don't have it, but we can use that on Craig because of bird rights, meaning that if we want to trade him later for somebody who makes the taxpayer MLE, it's within that 110% and they can do it no problem.
Right. So this is what I want to give credit to Zach Lowe, because he's the first one who I heard talking about this a few weeks ago. This is what he's been talking about. And basically the concept is yeah, the Suns could stack their roster with just here are 4 guys making $30+ million and everyone else makes $2 million. But then, as you said, because they can't aggregate any salaries, a trade would be virtually impossible unless you could find a way to pawn one of the $30 million salaries off on another team for a bunch of pieces. That's the only type of trade you could really make. So if they overpay Torrey Craig or Jock Landale, if one of those guys gets a contract that's worth like $7 million a year with a lot of unguaranteed money, some sort of team option that they could then flip later down the line, and another guy makes $11 or $12 million, which is going to be very, very close to the mid-level exception number.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if that happens. Just don't be surprised. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Suns are valuing Torrey Craig as a $12 million a year player.
He might get paid. That'd be awesome for him, by the way.
It would.
Yeah.
And he and his agent would accept it because it would be a lot of money.
And he wants to play here, probably.
It would be a lot of money.
It really is a best case scenario for him.
It would be a lot of money, but where some people don't follow this logic is they think, okay, well, how would if the Suns don't have any picks left to trade, how would you then actually go about successly trading that piece?
Yes, that's
for
a
another
great
guy
question
on the MLE? And the answer is maybe you wouldn't, but it would have to be.
You might. There's no downside because it's just money.
It would have to be.
As long as Matt Ishbia is willing to pay him, there's no downside. It's
it would
just
have to
money.
be a very particular situation, right? So,
like say for example, a team is close to the second apron in the middle of a season, signed a guy on an MLE, doesn't quite get to that or mid-level exception or something, and now all of a sudden their star player gets injured, and they're like, okay, well, we don't want to pay this tax money, let's trade this MLE guy we signed last year.
Here's an example. So first of all,
and Torrey Craig's money is partially guaranteed,
right.
So they can trade for Torrey Craig and then waive him.
Let's say Torrey Craig is on a 2-year partially guaranteed contract with a team option in the second year. Any team that acquires him, yes, it's more money for Torrey Craig than he would otherwise make, but any team that acquires him could dump him easily if they need to. Then let's say the Los Angeles Lakers sign Bruce Brown to their full MLE for 4 years, and Anthony Davis blows out his knee 15 games into the season, and they decide they want to pivot.
And LeBron James is terrible now. Yeah,
that's one theoretical example.
Yeah.
Another theoretical.
There are other teams too. Yeah.
Another theoretical example is any sort of rebuilding team that has an MLE guy but decides halfway through the season that, hey, we want to go in a different direction because we're 10 games under 500. Let's start selling off pieces. Let's start scrounging up whatever cap space we can and make a play at the next free agency class. How do we dump $10 million really quick? Well, maybe we could flip our MLE guy for, say, Torrey Craig if he has a lot of unguaranteed money. So that's just no guarantee that this does happen. I just wanted to make sure we got it on the record on the podcast because there is a chance that you see that tweet from Woj or Shams which says Torrey Craig signing for 3 years and $32 million from the Phoenix Suns. Everyone starts flipping out saying, oh, what an overpay. What the hell are they doing? There would be a very specific reason why they would do that, and it's important that we covered it. Okay.
And you'd have to guarantee enough money on Torrey Craig's contract to make it worthwhile for him too. So more than a minimum, obviously, for a few years. Let's get to some names because was boring.
Go. That was boring. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for sticking with us.
It is what it is because that's important.
It's
and
time
for those of you who understood it and followed us that full way through. When Torrey Craig signs for too much and your coworker walks up to you and says, "What are the Suns doing? Why did they sign that bum for $30 million?" You could be the smart guy that explains it to him with a smug look on your face.
It's true.
Gambo reported 2 free agent players that the Suns are looking at before he jetted off to eat pizza on the beach. And that is Yuta Watanabe and Keita Bates-Diop. And I think Yuta has been connected to the Suns, 5 times? Is this like tampering right here? Like, he seems to be coming to the Suns at this point, right?
I don't quite understand the Watanabe stuff. Not in the sense that I would dislike the signing. I like who he is as a player. But the sheer number of times that his name has come up in the last couple of weeks and the sheer number of people who are already so in on this for a guy who averaged 6 points per game last year is just a little. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like it. It does kind of feel
51% on corner threes.
He's good. He's
51% on corner threes. The Suns have not had a guy like that.
He's a good player in his role. That was the only season.
Has improved year over year, which I like.
It's the only season he's ever had like that, though. He hasn't been a shooter like that all 4 years of his career.
He's a minimum player.
I know. I'm just saying. I like Watanabe. I am in full support of this if it does happen. I think he's a plus defender too, and I think that's important. But
and he was on all of our radars already. Like, this was not a huge surprise, as the other name may have.
But that's what I'm talking about. Why was he? Yeah. Why was he on all of our radars already? I'm not talking about
Mark
us.
Stein reported
I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about everyone.
Yeah.
Why does it? Yeah. How do so many people know Yuta Watanabe's name already? He's not the type of player that I would have anticipated that for.
KD must really like him. I mean, that's what I got to say, and that's a good sign. I mean, it's not a terrible sign.
He's got a little athleticism too.
He's not a great defender, though. No, I mean, look, he's a bad defender. Let's be honest here. He's not a good defender.
I think for his tier, he's fine.
Yeah, if you're getting 51% on corner threes and he's not short, so like that's pretty valuable. I think you can get away with putting him on a team, especially in the regular season. Whether or not he earns a role in the playoffs, look, that's going to be a question about every minimum guy you sign. It just is. So it's no guarantee. But I think for him, yeah, I'm all in. Let's do it. Throw him a deal. He's going to play, shoot corner threes. There's going to be lineups with the Suns where they just surround everyone with shooters and bury a team in threes. And yeah, that sounds great. The other guy, Keita Bates-Diop, was not somebody that I really had on my radar. Maybe I would have thought about him had I done my research before I saw Gambo's tweet about that. But that seems pretty interesting. He has a 7'3" wingspan.
Yeah. So the funny thing about the Spurs being so bad last year is that, there are guys on their roster who it's like, I just didn't check on all season long. And I had no idea that Keita Bates-Diop, who I know who he is, right? Like I've tracked his career loosely, but if you had told me that he averaged basically 10 points per game in the NBA last season, in a full season, and started 42 games, I would have had no idea. Absolutely no idea. I would have guessed that he was a 15-minute per game role player still, because that's what he was in my mind for the past few seasons.
Yeah, and he's 6'8", 7'3" wingspan, and he's a guy who grades out as like a defender who guards bigger guys. He's not like a guy who can guard small. He's probably going to be guarding bigger wings and stuff like that, but that's something that's valuable when he shot. This is kind of weird. 37% from the corners, but 41% above the break for a guy who's 6'8".
Yeah, not super high volume. Do want to warn you on that, right?
Oh yeah, of course. But I do find that interesting to have a higher percentage there. Of course, he's probably going to shoot more from the corners, but yeah, it's rare to have guys who shoot better from above the break than from the corner. And if it's something that you can do as like a big, that's really valuable, because when you're doing pick and pops, you can't get to the corner usually. You're popping out to the wing. Anyway, I did look at some of the basketball index stats on him. He did spend, because he was on the Spurs, he did spend some time guarding usage tier 1 players. So this is something that with the tracking data, you can track who these guys are guarding. And if they guard usage tier 1 players, that means they're guarding the player on the other team that has the ball the most, usually the best offensive player on the other team. And that was his second highest tier of players that he guarded, which I think if you have a really good wing on the other team, he's the guy that was defending him. Now, his defense does not grade out as great defense based on the stats. I haven't watched enough to feel comfortable figuring out how he would fit with the Suns. It's hard to grade defenders on bad teams because often there are just holes everywhere. So it's hard to figure out how these guys would fit on other teams. But I mean, this seems like a pretty good fit for the Suns, and I think that as far as putting him in a system with Frank Vogel, a long player with long arms, this is kind of what you need when you're playing teams like the Nuggets, so you can get in the passing lanes. And I just think it makes a lot of sense, and I really like him as an option.
Yeah, and so in his career, I mean, he generates some level of deflections. I wouldn't say a ton for a guy who has a 7'3" wingspan, but sometimes it's just about applying pressure. And how many times did Frank Vogel in Beal's introductory presser today talk about how they wanted to be a tenacious defensive team? Like, these are specifically the types of guys that he's looking for on the perimeter. So yeah, I think it's a really good call by you to point out the defensive matchup stats there. If he's a big point of attack defense guy, then I could be sold easily.
Yeah, and I don't think he's great at that. Like, he's not guarding point guards, for example. He's just too big. He's not fast enough to move at that size. Mikal Bridges was it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, he's an oddity.
Yeah, that guys that are 6'8" can move like that. But he's even bigger. He's 6'9", and with longer arms. And so you can put him on guys like Paul George or Kawhi Leonard or something like that, and maybe he'd be okay. Probably not great, but maybe if he can find a role, if he can improve his defense on a team that maybe plays a little smarter than the Spurs did, maybe he can find a better role. But I really like him as an option, and I did not think of him. So I do kind of hope the Suns could figure that out, and he could take a minimum deal. So we'll see what happens there. Now, I came up with some names. You came up with some names. You just want to go back and forth?
Let's go back and forth. Just spend a couple minutes on each guy and see how long we can go for.
All right, who you got?
Mo Bamba. Lakers.
So this is a new one.
Yes.
You wrote this one today.
Yeah. Lakers were trying to save some cap space so that they can go and chase Bruce Brown, making Mo Bamba a free agent. He could still go back to them, but he's an unrestricted free agent like anyone else. What do you think?
Yeah, and if he goes back to them, he's going back on a minimum anyway, right? So then that's why we could potentially talk about him as on the Suns. So are you saying as like a backup center, or as if Ayton's traded, this is our replacement starter?
I think it could be either scenario. I'm not like super comfortable with him as the starting center, but I would point out that last season with the Magic, now granted they were a terrible team, but he started 69 games. As their starting center, he averaged 11 points, 8 rebounds, and 1.7 blocks per game, and shot 38% from deep. That's not
fascinating.
It's not terrible for a guy you could potentially get on a minimum. He did not play a role really for the Lakers in the playoffs this year. So I don't know. Remained like a lot of question marks. Like you said, there are going to be question marks about absolutely every single.
These are minimum guys.
Minimum guy you can sign. What I really like about Bamba is he provides rim protection, and based on his last 2 years of shooting data, that he's got some pop in his game. He can legitimately space the floor. We've never seen him in a high volume role where he's chucking 5-6 threes a game, but he could definitely shoot the three. So, yeah, I think there's some value there. What do you think about Mr. I Got Hose?
I don't hate it. I think that is he better than Biyombo? You think?
Yes, because Biyombo has no offensive skill whatsoever.
Right.
That's just my opinion. I really like Busy, and I think Busy has some intangible value.
Is he better than Jock?
In the locker room, too.
Jock was really good in the playoffs.
Jock's more of a...
Jock earned a lot of respect from me in the playoffs.
Jock's a little bit more of a facilitator. I don't know if he's better than Jock. I think it's close. I think it's real close.
Yeah, I wonder if the Suns would just start Jock Landale in that case. And I find it interesting. I think maybe you're talking about a Biyombo replacement if you do end up signing him. And I don't know if the Suns would be willing to do that. Biyombo was... I mean, I don't know if Frank Vogel is just going to be like, Biyombo, block shots. Give me Biyombo,
Mo Bamba block
that might
shots.
be all he thinks.
He blocks a lot of shots.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. It's true.
It's like his whole thing.
And they're both kind of similar in that they're not like super, super tall. They're just really long and defenders who can kind of track guys at the rim, and the timing matters. I don't hate it. You want me to go?
Go ahead.
Jalen McDaniels. Have you thought about Jalen McDaniels?
Yeah, I thought out of our price range, but would be awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if he is either. I just wrote him down because I like him. He's not a good offensive player. So this is why I think that he might be a minimum deal. Just not good. He's a good defender, 34% on corner threes, which is like Okogie numbers in this last year. So that's kind of how you can think about him. He can finish like in transition and occasionally at the rim, but just not a great defender. But he's 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan, and just could be a guy that you plug and play when you need a bigger wing defender. In my opinion, when I looked at this free agent class, it was easier to find shooters than it was to find defenders. So I tried to stack defenders first when talking about these guys.
Sure.
And Jalen McDaniels could be one of those guys that, look, although he might be a negative offensively, he will be a positive defensively with the Suns. And it just all depends on what his market is. So and if these guys are willing to take less to play with the Suns, which I have a whole section of guys like that.
Piqued my interest, so I'm looking it up. Josh Okogie is a career 29% three-point shooter. Jalen McDaniels is a career 34.5%, and all other things being more or less equal with these guys, I think that could maybe make all the difference, right? So
6'9" compared to 6'4".
Yeah,
it just makes a huge
Okogie's
difference.
Okogie's wingspan is still pretty massive.
Absurd.
For
it's
his
probably
size.
7 feet, right? Yeah.
I mean, fuck. I'd like to have both of them. I'd take Josh back for a minimum. Seriously, for sure.
I think if you've need him, then yeah.
But I feel like there's some team that's gonna maybe not use their entire mid-level exception and has like a few million left to throw take a Kogi just feels like a guy to me where like I know he maybe he didn't prove enough and he wasn't good in the playoffs to really take long-term investment from some team, but like if I'm a team with $3 or $4 million to throw at Josh Okogie over a few years, I'm doing that over just giving him a minimum just to give me.
You have more faith in that than me. I think he's probably a minimum player.
I don't know if he's a minimum player. I hope he considers coming back to Phoenix because I'd really like to have him. He's a dog. What can you say? But McDaniels would be better. He would be better.
Who you got?
Oh man, where should I go?
Wherever you want. I'm curious. We didn't talk to each other at all about the guys we wrote.
There's so many guys. Yeah. All right, so let's do it. We'll talk about Stanley Johnson real quick, just because there was that news that they're working him out.
He's going to try out.
They're trying out Stanley Johnson. The reason they can do that is because he is not currently under contract. He was waived by the Spurs. That was the most recent team he played with. And just another point of attack defender. Big as fuck. He is 6'6", but with a 7-foot wingspan, I think, and just tank in terms of his frame. He's got a really impressive kind of Ish Wainwright-esque frame, and shoots corner threes. He's kind of similar to Ish Wainwright, I'm not going to lie, but I think he's better.
Yeah.
Stanley Johnson, thoughts?
It's fine. I think it's fine. And I think he's got, familiarity with Vogel, so it's nothing super.
That's very important.
This is what all these players are. They're not like overly exciting. As options, but I think that the nice thing about Stanley Johnson is you're getting a younger player, and that's helpful with these guys to not I have Jeff Green on this list, for example, and you could potentially get Jeff Green, and we don't need to tell you who Jeff Green is because he's been playing since KD and Jeff Green were teammates
since the dawn
on the
of
Seattle
man.
Supersonics. Yes. So that's how long he's been in the NBA, but he's
Jeff.
older, so yeah. But wouldn't it be fun having Jeff Green on the team finally? Just
would be,
would be sidebar
for him to make it around. Just a point on Stanley Johnson. It was good that you mentioned he did play with Vogel last year with the Lakers, and I think that's probably a strong reason, that connection, why they're even bringing him in for a tryout in the first place. I don't know how much James Jones likes him traditionally, but he has a connection with Vogel. He started 27 games on that Lakers team in a specific role as you are going to be our hustle and grit and defense guy. Also he's a U of A product, if anyone gives a crap about that. I know some people do. So
no, people care about that? I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So, another U of A guy for the roster.
Matisse Thybulle.
Oh shit. He's a free agent.
Did you have him on your list?
I didn't even know he was a free agent. He sucks too much. There's a certain level of suck on offense that I'm not willing to dip below.
What about
he meets the level of suck.
What about in small ball 5 lineups with KD at center?
Oh my god. Okay, first of all, wait a second. I didn't look at these stats. Matisse Thybulle shot 39% from deep in 22 games with the Blazers post All-Star break.
Yeah, because I don't believe in it, but yeah,
I don't believe that, but that's impressive.
But you know what? Do you know what else about Matisse Thybulle? His family lives in Scottsdale.
I did not know that either.
During the off season, he comes here and
God,
hangs out with them.
If Matisse could just have a full season of shooting 35-36% from deep, there is no better point of attack defender that you could have as your fifth guy. No one. Yeah. He's the best at it. But he's been so bad offensively in his career. Like, I'm not even talking about Josh Okogie levels of bad. He's been so bad.
You have Karl Anthony Towns, and now he can play in the dunker spot as a screener.
You'd have to use him in the dunker spot or something if he can't hit his threes.
That's right. And it's the hard part with Matisse, and this is just, it is what it is. You either are willing for guys to sag off of him and you try to let him shoot threes occasionally, or you find lineups where it's 5 out and he's the only guy cutting to the rim. And he can be that. He can be that. These guys are all minimum guys for a reason. If Matisse Thybulle shot 38% from 3, he might make $15 million this year, but he can't. And look, maybe he won't be a minimum guy. Maybe a team will be like, nah, he's good enough on defense to pay him more, be our Tony Allen. But the NBA is different now. It's hard to have guys who can be exploited.
I was going to say the problem with being your Tony Allen is that Tony Allen wouldn't exist in the NBA today if he couldn't learn how to shoot. Guys like Tony Allen get played off the floor now.
I think it's a risk worth taking if he's available at a minimum. If he's not, then obviously it's not, and the Suns couldn't do it. But if he is, I would do it.
I think it's a good call. Good call at a minimum value. I would do that too. All right, Patrick Beverley.
I hate this one.
I don't know, man.
He sucks.
Sometimes. Does he?
Yes.
Does he, or are you just getting in your feelings?
No, I think he does suck now.
Sometimes you just need someone to punch another player in the mouth, and I don't know.
Do you know what the Bulls record? Look, not to discount the take I just had, but you know what the Bulls record was when Patrick Beverley played on their team?
I'm surprised you did you look this up?
Does
this mean you did research on Patrick Beverley? Like you thought about it?
I think they were 14-8, if I'm not mistaken, which
Great.
makes them a winning team when he joined them.
Sign me up. So who sucks now?
Well, he does love Karl Anthony Towns. Called him the best player he's ever played with. So if Karl Anthony Towns ends up on the Suns, I think we can guarantee a Patrick Beverley signing at that point. I hate it. I just don't like him. I don't like
him either. I don't like him at all. I think
I get it.
I think
we
is.
would fall in love with him, I'm sure, as every fan base does.
I think he is a narcissist, egotistical. I don't usually go for the character attacks, but in Patrick Beverley's case, I think it's really earned of who he is.
He's dirty.
And he's dirty?
Yeah.
But it would be funny.
Okay, yeah, fair.
Part of these names, I mean, imagine we got Kyrie and Patrick Beverley as our point guard rotation. It's just the funniest possible thing that can happen.
The Suns really have the potential to be the funniest team ever, while still being amazing.
For sure.
Josh Richardson, this is not overly exciting.
Yeah, I think
this is the one that could genuinely happen here.
I have him as more than a minimum guy, but if he's willing to come here, I think he's maybe a taxpayer mid-level type guy.
He could be.
If he's willing to come here and chase a ring, then I'm totally down. He jumps to the top of my list. He would be solid. The thing about Josh Richardson, he's kind of disappointed a little everywhere he goes.
He's not great at anything.
Exactly.
Because he's just kind of good at everything.
He signed to that big contract and then was just average at everything. But for a minimum, someone who's average at everything is exactly what we need. If you're average at everything, you're great. You're great in your role. So.
And if you could have one season where you're above average defensively or above average from the 3-point line, then of course then you become much more valuable, which he has had seasons where he's above average at both of those things, often at the same time. So if he could do that again, that's really valuable. But yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe he's not available at that minimum contract level. What do you got?
Let's see who else is here. Eric Gordon. Clippers.
Yes, 100% yes.
Clippers declined his option yesterday because speaking of teams that are screwed by the new CBA that have to pay $1 billion in luxury tax penalties, just by not accepting Eric Gordon's team option for $21 million, I read that the Clippers saved over $100 million in luxury tax penalties. Absolutely absurd. I don't know. Can Eric Gordon play in the playoffs? What do you think?
He's gotten worse year over year, and he's only getting older.
Yes.
But it is a minimum deal, and he has the potential to shoot from 30 feet. There's just... You take risks like that with minimum deals, and he, to me, is an obvious yes. You just have to do it. Can his defense hold up at his age? Probably not. There's a good chance it won't. But can he be good enough on the other end, while being not totally awful defensively, to play him minutes at the very least in the regular season, and then maybe have him earn minutes in the postseason? Yeah, I think it's worth it.
Is it fair to say at this point, he's kind of like Shamet, but with actual confidence? He'll go out there and he'll actually take 8 or 9 threes in his 20 minutes, and
they're not going to leave him open.
Yeah,
they might on this team because it's just a different team, but they shouldn't leave him open.
Yeah, I don't think he'll play much of a playmaking role beyond that, and certainly not a defensive role. But just the offense is that stuff is real. Eric Gordon, I can't think of many players over the past decade who have been more consistent in just offensively what you're going to get out of this guy every single season than Eric Gordon. He's been one of the most consistent guys. He's always there. He's always hitting the threes. He's always somewhere in around the 15 point per game mark. So for a minimum, it would be great.
All right, Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, he's got the vocal
familiarity
he's got the
with
vocal
Vogel.
connection, admittedly.
Look, you really only need him if Campaign is not on the Suns anymore, I think. But that's, to me, if Campaign ends up in a trade here and he's not on the Suns, then obviously, yes, you sign Dennis Schroeder. Like, I think that would be a smart signing by the Suns to be that backup point guard that can just eat minutes in the regular season and occasionally play in the playoffs.
I just wish he was a little bit better as like a catch and shoot spot up guy and less of a
I don't like watching him play.
And less of a slasher, because I think, I actually think one of the best parts of Schroeder's game is his slashing, but like you don't want him doing that, taking these kind of haphazard, weird, drives to the rim, like taking the ball out of Booker or Beal's hands. Like if he's going to play on the court with them, you want him spotting up on the wing, one pass away, doing what we know Campaign can do. Campaign is a slasher too. But the only reason Campaign has lasted on the Suns this long is because he's been consistently hitting close to 40% of his catch and shoot threes. He's been a spot up threat in a way that Chris Paul can't. And I don't know if Schroeder can do that. So that's my only gripe.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think you're right. Probably on that one. But I think there's a good chance of that one too. Like I said, if Campaign's gone, I think that one's pretty likely here. Do you have any more that you would like to speak with in more detail, or do you have a list of names that you want to?
I got 3 more. How many more do you have?
I have a few, but I have a few where I just want to kind of list them off.
Okay.
As just names to keep an eye on.
Javon Carter, real quick.
Yeah. That's a great one. I didn't even have that. But yeah,
he's been linked to the Suns, and we obviously know why. Part of me does feel like this is a little bit of nostalgia pulling at people's heartstrings because
he was good last year.
He was good last year. But he didn't play in the playoffs because he's 6'1". And so, my issue, like, strategically with Javon is I think his shooting is real now. He's improved tremendously as a shooter, even when he was on the Suns. And since then, his defense is legit in terms of his ability to guard guards. But can he stay on the floor defensively in the playoffs is a tough ask for him. And we know he's not a playmaker, which is fine. Like, again, it's a minimum contract, so you can't ask guys for everything. I just wonder if he feels like a guy who would get 20 minutes per game in the regular season and then get cut out of a playoff rotation, because that's kind of what he's been in his career. But I think he deserves a mention.
I don't hate it. I think, and he's also somebody that was reportedly connected with the Suns. Mike Scotto, I believe, was a reporter that said that the Suns could be interested in him. This is a long shot, but Ayo Dosunmu
he's a free agent?
Is a free agent. I'm not sure if he's restricted or not, but he is a free agent.
No, I think he's unrestricted now that you mention it, because he was a second round pick.
Yes.
Shit.
Yes, that's right. And so his contract is up, I believe, with the Bulls, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. That's a great look. He's definitely should not be a minimum guy, but you never know with the Bulls.
And he wasn't like he was not a great shooter. So like he's a guy who is a really tenacious defender at the point guard position who's not small. So you're essentially talking about a 6'5" Javon Carter, basically. But Javon Carter shot 41%.
Yeah, except that Javon shoots better.
Yeah.
But yeah. I would, with a guy like Ayo who's only 23, I think you take that investment if you can. And just kind of like hope that he learns to shoot over the course of a year or maybe even 2 if it takes that long. And he's got
maybe
everything
maybe a team will talk themselves into him at a bigger contract.
For sure.
I kind of feel like it's unlikely. I just don't know how much he's shown as a guy who's 6'5" to not be on a team that already has a ton of offense. You kind of already need a team that has a ton of offense, which means those are probably contenders. Mm-hmm. So they usually only have minimum deals. So I don't know who his agent is. That's something I probably should have looked up. Do you want me to just list a couple players I have and see if you have them too?
Sure.
Shake Milton.
Okay.
Is he on your list?
No, but
shooter.
Yeah, I can see it.
Trey Lyles, taller shooter.
Yep, I could see it.
Yeah, I could see it. Guys who maybe if they take less, Seth Curry.
Yeah, he would be awesome. He I think is out of the range, but would be great.
I think there's a chance he actually could come to play for the Suns. Played with Durant in the past.
True.
Also, if the Suns signed Damian Lee, Seth Curry, Damian Lee, very close, probably would enjoy playing together. Here's another guy that I think is better than a minimum player, but could take the minimum, and that's Mason Plumlee.
Yes, definitely better than a minimum, but he would be like the ideal. Like I would be Mason Plumlee is the tier of center who I would be comfortable if you were going to trade Ayton for something else that's actually good, but that is not a center, and then you sign Mason Plumlee to be your starting center. Like, that's kind of the minimum level of, I'm comfortable with Mason Plumlee as our starting center.
He was very good in the playoffs, I thought, against the Suns. I was like, okay, this guy still has some juice left. And he's also a good passer. When we talk about this team and the way teams are going to guard them, these bigs that are going to be doing DHOs at the top of the key, all the defense is going to do when guarding the Suns is stand way off of them. And that means if you're a good passer, you're going to force them to guard you in a way that if you're not a good passer, they won't. Like if DeAndre Ayton, who has not shown a ton of great passing, if he's doing DHOs from the top, they're going to be 10 times more worried about the guys coming off those screens, and they're going to ignore him and kind of dare him to shoot that mid-range shot over and over again, which is not a good offense for the Suns. And if he can learn to pass, or just Mason Plumlee is in that spot and they can pass a little bit more, I do think the Suns become a little harder to guard when you have a passer in that role. I think I also thought Kobe White, if free agency just like completely dries up for guys the way it sometimes does, and then Kobe White is left just out on an island, does not have a team, and now maybe he's willing to sign a prove-it 1-year deal on his as a minimum guy. Maybe you could sign somebody like Kobe White if Campaign is traded.
Yeah, the thing about a lot of these guys on the fringes too, just to bolster the ring chaser argument, is that they understand, or if they don't, their agents will be telling them, the Suns are going to be on national TV every other game. They're going to get like 40 national TV games minimum. And if you make a deep playoff run, you could be the next Bruce Brown. Like you could be the guy who's everyone's going to be talking about Booker, KD, and Beal, but there's going to be someone who steps up and that people are happy to talk about. The Bruce Brown types, the Austin Reeves types, the person who becomes surprisingly the fourth most impactful player on the Suns, even at a minimum deal, and then plays their way into a contract that could be like a 1,000% pay raise. So, maybe a Kobe White or a lot of these guys who otherwise you wouldn't think would be minimum contracts, they could talk themselves into a deal like that because of just the spotlight factor, the exposure.
The thing about filling out a roster with minimum guys is there's a whole bunch to choose from. So there are going to be names that probably come up in this that we didn't mention.
I've got two
more.
Who
else do you have?
Just two guys who I thought had really good season campaigns last year on bad teams, but where they got to prove a little more. Drew Eubanks, just another center option for the Blazers.
I like that.
And Svi Mikhailuk played some good games for the
Hornets. Yes. Yeah, that's a great one,
can shoot a little bit. Defense is iffy, but he's big.
But yeah, that's an example, I think, of like guys who can shoot. It's easier to find shooters than defenders. I think I think that's going to be a problem for this.
He's 6'7". Like I think his defense is okay, but I prefer a 6'7" guy whose defense is okay than a 6'1" guy whose defense is okay, just as a general principle. So, just a couple guys who I think are still young and maybe could grow a little bit more, but would have to prove themselves on a playoff team because they've never really done it.
Well, we recorded Monday with Joe House, and after the recording, I told you, Sam, we'll come back Thursday. We'll do like 30 to 40 minutes on on these guys that are potential options for the Suns. They're all minimum guys anyway, so we don't have to do a 2-hour free agency special here. But here we are, an hour and approximately 15 minutes into this podcast, and we got a lot done. So thank you everyone for listening to this one. This episode took the place of our normal Patreon midweek episode because there's just too much this week. But we will get back to doing regular midweek Patreon episodes. If you want to listen to those, patreon.com/thetimeline, $6 a month for an extra episode every week, $3 a month if you want to join our Discord and talk to us there. We have over 350 people in that Discord now, I think. So thank you everyone for listening. And yes, we'll be back after free agency to talk about this team, or
whenever
if there's any
happens,
trades.
We'll be ready.
We'll be ready. Thanks everyone.